iRacing's origins are shrouded in time. Some say it was released way back in 2008. That was when the PlayStation 3 was still in its prime. In video game terms, that's about 1,000 years ago, and since then a lot has changed. Except the graphics of iRacing, they're still the same. Don't look at the screen, look away. Pay attention to those physics. They are brilliant, right? Everybody knows that real racing drivers love iRacing.
Actually, these cars are harder to drive, I hate to say that, than our cars. Our cars are pretty forgiving. When you get loose, they kind of catch themselves a little bit. This thing, when it gets loose, she gone.
Honestly, like, never once in real life have I ever had rotation that early into a hairpin at Barber. Like, are you kidding me? This isn't a Mazda Miata. This is an Indy car.
Oh my god! What the hell? What the fuck?
Bro, what the hell happened then?
What the fuck? Dude, seriously, this game is ridiculous. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What?
This thing on cold tires is so unrealistic.
The good thing about real life is boxing. You can control the race car a lot better than on this sim.
Yeah, the cars are too slippy in iRacing. The rear is just disconnected from the front.
But who cares about graphics and physics? There's over a decade of content to explore. It has over 100 cars. Some of them aren't even duplicates. Compared to the paltry 338 cars in GT Sport, iRacing's... wait, 300 is more than 100, isn't it? But the tracks though, it has more than 100 of those. Almost half of them you can actually have a proper road race on. No, that's got to be more than GT Sport. It might even beat out Forza 7 and it's 100 and... Yeah, okay, never mind. Look, numbers don't matter. It's value that counts. This game is only 7 USD. That's insane value. Wait, it says per month, doesn't it? And then the normal price is 13 USD, which makes it 156 per year. Damn, that's some EA level pricing right there. But hey, you're getting all that content added over the years. That's got to be worth it, right? Wait, you don't get that? A single track is how much? Hey, let's get real. iRacing is incredibly expensive with ancient graphics and sparse content. But there has to be some reason why people still play it. Let's find out. iRacing could not make a worse first impression. Just booting up the game is handled in a bizarre manner. Load up Steam, which loads a boot menu, which loads a web page, which loads the UI, which loads another UI, which can load the game. Okay. When finally in the game, and even with the new improved UI, everything seems designed for maximum confusion. Sure, long-time players might know exactly where to go and what to do, but seeing this Excel spreadsheet for the first time, what even is this? If you can manage to find it, here is the event screen. This is set to list all events I am eligible for in the road racing category that also have fixed setups. As you can see, there are slim pickings. 2 races, one of which I need to buy 2 pieces of DLC just to race in. And it's not the best first impression for such an expensive game. But you have all those filters on here, you say. Well, let's talk about those. I have the road racing filter on because ovals bore the crap out of me. Smash that dislike button. And the eligibility filter is on because there is no point in showing me races that the game won't let me enter. More on that bit later. But why fixed setups? For those unaware, a fixed setup means that the car suspension and drivetrain configuration is locked. Everybody runs the same car settings. Racing doesn't get more fair than that. I'd argue that it's more realistic this way, as no professional level driver in the world needs to set up their own car. That is why racing teams are teams and not racing lone men. But to be fair, let's not only turn off the fixed setup filter, but let's also wait until the next time block and new races show up. Now we have 4 races, 3 of which require paying iRacing even more money to enter. So as I said, bad first impression there. The cost of entry is higher and there isn't really much to do. Often there is just 1 race you can enter per hour, and if you don't like that race, well, tough. Go outside and get some fresh air, I guess. If iRacing has a gameplay loop, it's this. Purchase content, purchase more content, and nah, I'm kidding, alright. iRacing runs to a calendar. Each year is split into 4 seasons lasting 12 weeks each with 1 race per week. And what I mean by 1 race is 1 car and track combination. Within that week there will be a race you can enter every hour or so for popular events. At least when starting out, the only reason you need to care about seasons is that promotions happen after each season. But what's a promotion? That's where the license system and eligibility we mentioned earlier comes into play. Your iRacing license is based on your safety rating and participation. The safety rating, let's call it SR for now, starts out at 2.5 and you need it over 3.0 to be eligible for a promotion, as well as meeting the minimum participation requirements. In my case, you can see here I have entered 4 races in Class D and have an SR above 3.0, so at the end of the season I'll be promoted to Class C. But why should I care? Well, if I was already in Class C, I could enter the Porsche Cup. After buying the Porsche, of course, and buying the track. This is iRacing after all. So SR is important then, and it's based on your on-track actions. Go off track, it goes down. Hit someone, it goes down. Someone hits you, it goes down. Keep clean and pump out the laps though, and you are golden as each lap builds your SR. There is also your iRating, and it's basically a measure of your speed in a race. There is not too much reason to care about it apart from the fact that it determines what level of drivers you will be pitted against. This is known as the split. As shown here, one race is split into a number of simultaneous races, each grouped by iRating level. The lowest ranked drivers face much slower competition, and justifiably iRacing gives less points to the winners of the lower splits than they do to the winners of the splits with much higher rated drivers. And that about covers it. Race, improve your license to enter more races to improve your license. As always, the real fun of racing games comes in the racing. This is the point where people usually start to talk about physics, but let's circle back to that and briefly mention the graphics, because even a brief mention is more than they really deserve. I really don't need to say much here, right? Even a decade ago, these graphics were dated. You can literally see the straight edges of the polygons these featureless textures are applied to. The lighting is bad, the textures and models are bad. Let's just move on. Back to the physics then. This is something I usually like to completely avoid talking about because when people talk about simulator physics, the conversation is all over the show. Coming into my rediscovery of iRacing after many years of indifference, I had been playing a lot of GT Sport and before that Assetto Corsa. I jumped straight out of GT Sport into iRacing and what happened? I started on pole and finished first in my first race. Why? Because both the car and the track are in GT Sport and I just race as the same as I do in that game. The next 2 races were at Okayama. I don't know that track very well at all, so I did not qualify well, but I still finished second. Then I tried out a car I hadn't even heard of before, the Formula V. The party trick of this car is to spin you backwards off the track if you dare so much as even think about braking. Thankfully, one of the few things you can adjust on this car is the brake bias, which I found out after placing 6th in my first race with the V. I set it to something sane for the next race and finished first again. At this point you might be thinking, yeah, cool story bro, but I do have a point to make. While people like to talk about huge differences in physics between one game being simcade and another being full sim, the driving models of most games have more similarities than differences. Hence why you can jump into iRacing from games people even call simcade without much issue. But there are differences. Foremost for me is this spongy, floaty feeling cars in iRacing have. I never have the feeling that I know exactly what the car is doing, and sometimes seemingly innocent slides quickly turn into uncatchable spins. It's a common criticism of iRacing and something I don't experience in games like Assetto Corsa or Automobilista. A welcome aspect of the physics though is tyre temperature. You can really feel how cold your tyres are at the start of a race as you try to make turn 1 only to have the car understeer past the apex, then decides it wants to oversteer on the exit. Then a handful of fast laps later and you're again going ice skating because this time you have cooked your tyres and you begin to think, maybe that's why everyone was going so slow. Maybe they were protecting their tyres. The racing itself has a very serious feel to it, mainly due to the enforced event structure with every event having qualifying sessions and races lasting at minimum 15 minutes or as long as all day in some special events. There is also the matter of the banhammer hovering over your head if those incident points that lower your SR build up past a set limit for that race. Drive like an idiot and eventually you'll be disqualified, but that doesn't scare everyone. It will still see plenty of drunk drivers and spoiled children out on the track. It's to be expected when you start with the rookies. Climb your way up to the top license and you will leave most of the rammers behind. There is also the matter of damage. It's not really contributing to the seriousness of the racing, as usually anything that is going to damage your car is also slow, but it's still pretty cool to just nonchalantly hop a curve only to have the front suspension completely collapse. Not gonna be doing that one again. So to answer the question, is this ancient game still worth your time? It's been a long time since its release and there is so much more competition now. These days it's not just iRacing's graphics that are blown out of the water, but even consoles are starting to challenge its online multiplayer structure. We have a very dated game engine and a unique selling point that is not so unique anymore, wrapped up in a very expensive package. But if you gel with the physics of iRacing, the meat of the game is fun. So the answer is a definite maybe. Have you always fantasized about being a racing driver? Is your spare time as vast as your pockets are deep? If the answer to those questions is yes, then jump right in. You'll find iRacing to be a lot to learn, but rewarding in the end. For the rest of us, however, the competition is too numerous and too spectacular to ignore.